Yes, Steve Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank the gentleman from Virginia for bringing this bill forward, and the gentleman from Michigan as well, for all the hard work they've done in drafting this important legislation. I think it does move juvenile justice and crime prevention policy in a very positive direction, especially through its focus on community involvement. And I thank particularly Chairman Scott for working with me on this manager's amendment in allowing the restorative justice programs to be eligible to receive funds through the gang prevention grants in the bill. Restorative justice is an innovative approach to conflict resolution that's showing promising results throughout the country and abroad. It focuses on repairing the harm by crime rather than simply punishing the offender. Too often we rely simply on harsh punishments, or incarceration, which are expensive and counterproductive in the long range with youth because they get into the criminal justice system and sometimes they don't get out. Where appropriate, restorative justice can serve as a cost-effective and useful alternative. It establishes a non-adversarial process that brings together the offender, the victim, and other parties to ask three major questions. What is the nature of the harm from the crime? How can this be repaired? And who's responsible for the repair? I had that happen in my own personal life, and it worked. Somebody in the neighborhood went through one day with axe or some kind of instrument and cut down all the trees in front of my house in the median. Through some detective work in the neighborhood, we found out the type of child that would be likely to do such a thing. We brought them forward and required them to plant new trees and to take care of them for a year. And they did that. And to the best of my knowledge, the rest of the forests in Memphis are in good shape and not being threatened by these young people. They learned a lesson, and they restored what they had done. I think that was a better way to do it than to take them to juvenile court. So restorative justice invites offenders to take responsibility and create plans to make restitution. The process holds juvenile offenders accountable for their victims, to their victims and the community, and understand the impact of their actions. I told the young people, I said, you can look at these trees the rest of your life and realize they're your trees and value trees and what they can do. And I think they learned from that. It was still kind of upset that my trees aren't taller, but that's what happened. Restorative justice can provide a learning opportunity for these people, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate the opportunity to put this in the bill and to work with us. I appreciate and very much value the work and the intellect of the ranking member. But I read the same story the ranking member read about minority employment and the difficulties in this era for minorities, particularly African Americans, to get jobs. But what I think the ranking member didn't mention is what the story kind of said is that the highest level of failure to employ African Americans was the most educated, and they were having a more difficult time ratio-wise than any other group in getting jobs. And most of that was because of the clubby atmosphere of the higher income college-educated jobs that they never really get listed, and people who are of color don't get a chance to apply because others, the Caucasians, learn about them through family, friends, and club memberships or whatever, and they never get that opportunity. Those are things beyond African Americans, and it's not necessarily, these people aren't looking toward a life of drugs and crime and gangs, etc. There are a lot of things happening, and have always happened in our society, that are institutional racism that can't be dealt with simply on the idea of saying, go get a job, because jobs aren't necessarily available because certain people have better access to jobs and opportunities, and so the government has to step in and find ways to lead people to patterns and courses in life where they won't get into crime, and they can get a job because they won't have a criminal record behind them that forbids them from getting a job later on. So I would just differ with my friend, the ranking member, on his analysis of that story. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time.